Are any board members interested in the mayor's breakfast? A week from this Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Let me know, let Aaron know. Two, so if anybody's willing to join us.
Yeah.
Thursday, a week from this Thursday, November 18th.
The 18th.
All right, I think we get started. Before the meeting is called to order at 5 p.m. Can we all rise for the flag salute? Ready, begin. Roll call, let it be known that all members are present. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda of November 8th, 2021?
A motion.
Thank you, Ms. Shed. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Castaneda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Hearing session, the audience members may request to address the board on an item on the agenda.
Don't have any public hearing.
Okay, I don't need to go any further. No public comments. Going into the governing board comments. Start with Ms. Shed.
Well, thank you. Let's see. I have been able to join some of the parent trainings, which I think are excellent. And the facilitator is great, and she does a lot of discussion back and forth with the parents. And I appreciate that. I went on a tour with Dr. Miramontes and some of the business staff at the Centralia Kitchen. And that was informative. Good to see how they run their main kitchen. I know down the road we're looking at all we can do to be as effective as we can for nutrition department. And I've been to do some school tours, and so I'm happy and excited about what I see out there. The student engagement and the commitment of our teachers. We have a wonderful staff, and I'm just excited to get out there and be among the students and teachers again. Thank you.
Ms. Ahmad?
For me, my comments are very short this week. I just enjoyed seeing a lot of the Red Ribbon Week celebrations in the past few weeks of all the kids participating. It was great to see all the schools. I am looking forward to our Corey school tour tomorrow. I haven't been there, with kids there since pre-COVID. So I'm really excited to see that and go into the classrooms and see all the staff members.
Mr. Brudos.
Good evening to all. Hopefully everybody's had a good time celebrating Dia de los Muertos and Halloween in our community. I know in our neighborhood we saw a lot of trick-or-treaters and saw a lot of the students. And it was exciting to actually talk to them outside of a school setting. I know one of our police department hosted the Cops and Goblins, and that event was very well attended from what I did see. Also had the opportunity to observe the middle school at their speech and debate tournament. I'm really impressed with how composed and articulate our students were during the tournament. And that just goes to show that they were well prepared, and all the staff and the coaches prepared our students very well for that moment, because everybody was sounding much better than anyone I can even think of. And that's including myself. And that's, that's giving them a lot of praise, because to be in that kind of spotlight at that age, it can be nerve-wracking. So I appreciate it, and I was very impressed with all the hard work. And then lastly, I do want to thank our district for hosting the suicide and prevention for parents and caregivers, protecting our youth workshop. I think that was highly interactive. They did talk about a few things: how to identify suicide factors, understanding warning signs, and how to identify risk. And I'm very proud to say that our district has already taken initiative to take care of some of these things they're already recommending. Dr. Simonowski has been leading our intervention crisis team. We've been in contact with Care Solis, so they're one of our partners that we work with out there. We have resource officers at our middle schools and all of our schools. So from that standpoint of view, I think as a district, we're doing a great job already preparing ourselves with some of these scenarios that might arise. So thank you, everybody at the district level that has been working with our partners and internally. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Castaneda.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great Monday. This past week, I did attend Whitaker's Trunk or Treat, and it was amazing. It was great. It was fun to see all the kids just having fun and just some kind of normalcy for them and have an event again. And I know several other schools had events, and so it was great to see videos and pictures from Emory and just seeing them have fun and just, you know, hanging out and the families coming together and decorating their trunks and just being interactive. It was great. It was really a great time. So thanks to Whitaker for that. And I also look forward for tomorrow for Corey's tour with Miss Ahmad. So that's going to be very exciting to see the school with kids again. That's going to be exciting for me.
For me, I was able to be in a coach, and again, seems to be a lot of coach and stuff. I like it when my job and my board kind of overlap. Saw Principal Linicky, Ramirez, and Leota at this coach and training. They were looking like they were good spirits. Asked them how they were doing. It seems like they're having fun still. I think running the school, hard to have fun these days, and I'm glad they were able to report that. So I just messaged, "How you guys doing? How's it going?" They're like, "Doing great." It was good to see good representation. It was like a Fullerton, Buena Park dominated conference, which 2 powerhouses right there. Sports, I was able to continue again. I love sports, and then seeing our PE teachers lead and provide a lot of access for students beyond just like a competitive nature, but bringing in more kids in, even if it's at the risk of winning or losing, that take on more kids to give them the chance to be a part of the team was really good to see. So I want to give kudos to the PE teachers there at the middle schools. And that's for me. Dr. Montes.
Yeah, I do want to thank Mr. Frutos mentioned the practice shooter training, knowledge saves lives. I want to thank all those participants that came out on Saturday to learn. The feedback we have was every staff member should go through that training. So we'll survey the staffs and we'll work with our principals and the administration here at the district office to see how we can continue to grow and learn more about that area, just to be prepared, right? We had an incident here at the district office, and we definitely want to be as prepared as we can be. I too attended the Cops and Goblins along with some of our staff members, Mrs. Centeno and Mrs. Wong joined us as we were recruiting potential students at the City Hall. Wonderful event there. I actually got to judge the dance contest or the costume contest, I should say. Had a good time there. I do look forward to Corey visitation tomorrow. I believe some of our district office employees are going to be joining us as well. And I look forward to the mayor's breakfast. This past weekend, I did attend the AXA conference with 5 of the elementary school principals, and Dr. Simonowski and Mrs. Lorana Ortega presented, Dr. Simonowski presented twice. Ms. Ortega presented once. Well-received information. A lot happened in our district. A lot of things that we're experiencing, other districts are experiencing the same things. It's nice for our principals to hear that and to sit with other comrades and colleagues that are going through this. And I think the biggest thing is to be resilient and to be flexible and fluid. I mean, we know that school is not going to be the same. And we know that the circumstances right now are going to change each and every day. So I do want to thank all the staff members at school sites for their efforts to do what they're doing. I do look forward for tonight's board self-evaluation. I know it's always hard to self-evaluate yourself, or I should say, evaluate yourself, right? I look forward. I want to thank Angelina Pride, who's here from CSBA. That's going to facilitate the experience. This is going to be new for all of us, right? It may be uncomfortable, it may be comfortable. I have reviewed the survey results. I've always said we've got the best board around, and I truly believe that. I've got an incredible administration team as well. And so this is the time for us to self-reflect and to grow as a district. We ask our teachers to grow. We ask our instructional aides to grow. We ask our secretarial staff to grow. Our custodians, our administrators. I too am asking the board to grow. to listen tonight, to be attentive, and to work together so that we can achieve the things we want to achieve. Two last things. I want to thank our veterans. Thursday is Veterans Day. I have a father-in-law that passed away, was a lieutenant colonel, carried a Bible, was a chaplain in the U.S. Army, did it for 25 years. So I have a soft heart for the military, and I have a brother-in-law that was a Navy SEAL. So thank you for all the veterans that are out there that have served and those that are serving currently. And lastly, I just have one wish. And I need this to really happen to make my year, because USC has to beat UCLA. I just have to say it. So I'm hoping, right? So
Can we
Eric
strike that,
Bagger,
please? Can we strike that from the comments?
Yeah. Mr. Bagger and Mr. Park keep harassing me about how well the Trojans are doing. So with all due respect, I think you have to laugh in the circumstances that we're in. Laughter brings smiles, smiles bring happiness, happiness brings better opportunities to serve our people. So look forward to this, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
I don't know, Dr. Mirmont says that was bad. I don't like that. We're gonna make your year horrible then. Ms. Shed had wanted to add something. Is that okay to?
Sure.
She went ahead.
I too want to thank my husband. He's a retired veteran of 22 years.
Thank you.
So I appreciate that. And I wore my patriotic colors for Veterans Day today. But I wanted to say, I was able to attend the Orange County School Board and joint AXA dinner
Yes.
and participate with all the principals and Dr. Miramontes. And that was an exciting evening. And we talked about being mindful, taking care of ourselves so that we can better take care of our students. And that was an important message to hear. And I was super excited about, I had a lot of excitement, I guess. Super excited that Beatty brought over their volleyball team and their football team to Buena Park Middle School. And so I was there about a week and a half ago and saw the matchup with them. And it was fun to see kids out playing again and, I guess competitive, but still not rivalry type of thing. So that was real.
Healthy
exciting.
competition is what we call it.
Yeah, healthy competition is good. And so I just wanted to add that. Those were two highlights also of my time since I've been here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to action calendar. Approve the use of South County Support Services Agency pupil transportation equipment bid. Dr. Miramontes.
Yeah, this is, we've talked about this, as people are aware, we had a couple of buses vandalized, and it's going to cost us more to fix these buses. And so we're asking the board to approve the procurement process to purchase a bus that we actually need.
Do I have
So
a
one
motion?
bus. right?
One bus.
One bus.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Frutos.
We're keeping our fingers crossed that we actually get another bus from the South Coast Air Quality Management District.
Mhm.
Mr. Magbu, myself, and Mr. Perez met with one of the representatives today. We'll find out November 19th if we receive that second bus for free. Just have to turn in an old one. We receive a new electric bus. So we're looking forward to that. That news. So keep your fingers crossed.
Had a motion again.
Make a motion.
Mr. Frutos, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Shed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Consent calendar, we have only one item. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Thank you, Mr. Frutos.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Ahmad. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Going into governing board study session. In the study session format, the board will evaluate the results of their self-evaluation and participate in a governance team workshop facilitated by Angelina Pride from the California School Board Association. Trustees will discuss norms and protocols for effective governance. No motion here. Stop.
All right, let's move on.
Great.
Do we need our iPads?
Right, we are in for self-evaluation. We'd like to welcome Angelina Pride from the California School Board Association to help facilitate, guide us through this process. Thank you for being here, and we hand it over to you.
Great, thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you all for reaching out to CSBA to do a board self-evaluation because it is an important tool for a governance team. And I was excited when I was selected to do this. I don't live very far from here. Live in the LA area, so this was a short travel day for me. And I learned a lot about your district, so I'm excited to work with each and every one of you guys. You guys will have to bear with me. My voice is still a little raspy. I had a sinus thing a few weeks ago, and every time I get one of those, it takes about a month for my voice to fully come back. So I'm in week 3 of the voice recovery. Hopefully it'll be back fully by next week. I want to start off by telling you guys, when I was a board member, a school board member, I always had my books that I carried with me that I kept all my papers in and everything. And there was a quote that I kept taped inside of my book. And that quote was, people's participation is the essence of good governance. Because without people like you stepping up to the plate for this position, we wouldn't have good governance in our school district. We need our community members, our parents, our friends, family, retirees, everybody to step up to the plate and get involved in our school district. So thank you for doing what you do. I know it's a hard job. I did it for 7.5 years. And so I commend each and every one of you. I also want to thank each one of you for just being here tonight. I know some of you have to work all day. Some of you are doing other board business. Some of you are probably shuffling kids from here to there. And that's a lot. And then to have to come here and sit through a presentation, you know, it's a long day. So thank you for your commitment again to good governance. And I think that you'll find that it will definitely pay off. So I've had the opportunity to speak with each and every one of you individually, and it's nice to put faces with the names now. So I've learned a lot about you, and I told you when I spoke with you, it's to kind of save time so we don't have to do long introductions. So you all know me, I know all of you. So we're going to go ahead and just get started right away. So the first slide, and you guys all have your handouts, right?
Yeah.
Everything that I'm going to cover is in there. So the first thing that I would like to talk about is why do a board self-evaluation? And basically you do a board self-evaluation to grow stronger and to be more effective as a team. Because sometimes what you find is that what one board member thinks is working really well for your team, another board member may say, this is not working. But nobody ever has the opportunity to speak up. As board members, we're limited to what we can say in open session. We're limited to what we can discuss in closed session. So these types of environments are the only time that we really get to talk and express things that we think we're really good at, that we need to work on, things we'd like to see changed, and other items that are in our minds that we just never have the opportunity as a group, all 5, to discuss. So the board self-evaluation allows you to do that. And one thing I want you guys to know is that while I have my presentation and you have copies of the PowerPoint and you have copies of the self-evaluation and everything, this workshop is about you. This is your time. So if we get caught on a topic and we end up spending 20 minutes on that topic, we're going to spend the 20 minutes on that topic because that means it's important to you. And these opportunities are rare. And I want to make sure that when you leave here tonight, that you felt that the time spent was valuable and that you actually got what you needed from this workshop. So, you know, there may be some items that'll go super quick and then others where we'll spend a little bit more time. And that's okay. I can adjust, and I'm sure you can adjust too. But, you know, the other part of the self-evaluation is to make sure that we as district leaders, or you as district leaders, stay committed to continuous learning for yourselves as well. And then the second part is just the evaluation. You know, you evaluate your superintendent Each and every person in this room that's an employee gets an evaluation. Your teachers, your classified, they all get evaluated. Even your students do assessments. So the board should definitely take time to step back and say, hey, let's look at ourselves and see how we're doing. So that's the biggest part of this for me, to me. And then it also demonstrates accountability to the community, to those who elected you. It shows that you take your position seriously and that you do want to make sure that you're meeting their expectations and that you're meeting your own expectations as well. So that's a good way to do it. And next slide. So the CSBA survey tool, I just want to cover it briefly. There may be individuals who are listening who would like to know how does this process work. The CSBA board survey tool has 58 questions, and they're divided into two parts. The first part is on conditions of effective governance, and it covers things like culture, operations, unity, board development. The second part is about board responsibilities, and it covers things like setting direction, district structure, providing support, accountability, and leadership. The participants take the board members take the survey online, and they see a statement. The statement might be as simple as the board is focused on achievement for all students, and then they select what rank they want to give that statement. They can give it in almost always, which is the highest ranking, and that one is our green. They can say it's an often, which is the second highest, which is our blues. They can say it's less often, which is our yellows, and then they can say it's rarely, which is our ones. Sometimes you also might have someone say not sure, and usually that will happen when there's been a new board member introduced to the governance team who hasn't had a lot of time to learn their role yet. So there may be some things that they're not sure about, and those not sures are not weighted when we do the calculation of the results. So each member's results are confidential, and I'll be honest, before I do a workshop for a board self-evaluation, I have access to see how many things President Chung rated as almost always or rarely. I could see his responses. But before I do an evaluation as a group, I don't look at that, because I don't want to come in and think, okay, this person's thinking that way, this person's thinking that way. We are thinking as a team. You're thinking as a team. And I want to look at your results as a team. So I don't even look at that. And when you all got your results, all you saw was just how many people marked that. And that's enough information for us to work off of. Were there any questions about the self-evaluation? Or concerns about it? No? Everybody was fine? Good.
It's just a new process, so it's just to get used to, but I personally welcome this.
Right, exactly. When I was a trustee, the first time we did this, our board learned a lot about ourselves. And it really helped us, though, because, again, we had the opportunity to open up some dialogue and to talk with one another and discuss some of the results. Some of the conversations were very easy, and some were not. But it was so nice to be able to have that opportunity to get on the same page and to get in sync with one another. I did, for those who are here, put up a copy of what a sample of the board evaluation looks like. This is just a sample. It's not your district's, but just so they can see the score sheet. So as we prepare to review the results of the board self-evaluation, I want you to keep this quote in mind. You know, trust is the result of respect and understanding, not agreement. We don't have to agree with one another to trust one another. We don't have to agree with one another to know that student achievement is the forefront of all of our focus. We don't have to even want to have certain discussions, but we still need to trust each other. And I hope that as we go through the results today and talk about them, that each one of you will engage, will be honest, will say how you feel. And the ones who are receiving that information, I hope that you will trust that what the individual speaking is saying is their truth and is what they feel, and that you will respect that and honor what they have to say so that we can all work together. All righty? So then let's get into things. So again, when you all have had time to look at your results, right? Did everybody get a minute to go through them, or time to go through them? And so you know that the greens again are almost always, that's a strength for most members. The blues were often a strength for simple majority. The yellows less often, an area for growth for the simple majority. And then the red was rarely, almost never. So let's talk about the almost always first. And I have to tell you that I was very impressed when I saw your results for your board self-evaluation, because 48% of your responses fell under the almost always column. You were in the green, which is the highest level, which means that you were in agreement on those things. And they were important things. The first one, the board is focused on achievement for all students. Everybody was in the green on that. We were all in the green on that one. Everybody was in sync on that. There's a couple who said, yeah, we're there, but, there's still work to be done. And the others were like, yeah, we're on the right path. But you all were in the green on that. That says a lot about your board right there. It is, and I'm being honest, it is rare to see that one in the green. So good job for you guys. You guys are focused. You're committed to your vision. You guys are working hard towards doing what needs to be done to keep your district moving forward. You guys are concerned about your physical health, and you monitor it, and you ask questions about it. You celebrate your district's accomplishments, and you look for partnerships to support some of the things that you want to do. When you guys looked at the greens on your self-evaluation, the results, what were some of the things that came to your mind? Did you agree? Did you say, oh, wow, yeah, that should be green? Or be honest, the truth thing, was there some who were surprised that it was a green? Anybody? Go for it.
I was glad to see that a number of people agreed with these key points. I know how I felt, but I didn't know for sure how everyone else felt. Good to see this.
And you just, again, summarized why we do this process. Because like you said, you knew how you felt, but you did not necessarily know how everyone else felt. You assume that because they're here and they're putting in the time and putting in the work, that they do feel the same way. But it's nice to have the validation. Yes.
The comment, I thought it was interesting, putting a lot of thought into each of these. There's moments where you always have that one incident, and you're like, oh, maybe that should knock me down one or go up one. But then always having to go back to say, in all aspects, in general, it made it much easier to say, I feel like all of us do agree. Same as Ms. Shed said, I do agree. Like, it was encouraging that still everyone's in the same cause on these big bullet points, because that's what we're here for. So I feel like our North Star is still the same in general.
Absolutely. And that's a good way to put it, because your focus is there. You're all looking at the same goal.
I also went back and kind of remember conversations that we have in closed session or amongst ourselves, and just to see this as green as it was, I was surprised myself too. Some of those conversations that as a group weren't even close enough to.
Well, like I said, for me, it shows that you're focused on a common vision, that your moral imperative is there, which means that you all have that same passion. You all have that fire that says, we're going to do what we can for Buena Park School District. And that moral imperative is what's going to keep you going and keep you working and keep you fighting for your district. So you guys have that, and it's fantastic to see. I do these a lot, and yours was definitely one of the better overall evaluations I've seen. So kudos to you. This next page was even more fantastic because when we look at from one extreme to the other, we just looked at the top ranking. Now you look at the bottom ranking, which is rarely, and 0.17% said rarely, and it was only one question. Only one question received a red marking, a rarely. And that's what we're doing tonight. The question was, the board evaluates the performance of the board. We're doing that. So if you guys took this again tomorrow, this wouldn't be red, it'd be green. So the fact that you guys decided that, hey, this is something we need to do, and that the whole governance team was on board, it showed you had already future vision for what needed to happen next to build your governance team. And I think that's just awesome. Now, a couple of things I do want to tell you about the board self-evaluations. They should be conducted annually. Just like you evaluate your superintendent annually, you should evaluate the board annually. However, the timing is critical. Right now, this is a good time for your board to do it. Next year is an election year. And let's just say, and I don't know this, but let's say a couple of you decide, I'm not running, I'm stepping out. So you get 2 new people in. Your entire board has changed. So at that time, with an election in November and those board members being seated in December, you would not want to do a board self-evaluation for at least, I'd say 9 months. Because think about each one of you when you're a new board member, just to know your role and figure out, okay, where is all this school board member thing about? You're going to need some time to adjust. So if you do a board self-evaluation too early, then you're going to have a lot of those not sure. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of your professional development money. So during an election year, if your board changes, give it some time before you do it. And it's okay if you have to push it off, even for that year mark, it's okay. I'd rather see you do that and get true results than get a whole evaluation that just says not sure, not sure, not sure, not sure. Okay? So everybody's clear and cool with that one? All right. And then, the results, you do look at them individually, and then you have a session like this to discuss everything as a group. And then you use those results for continuous improvement to make your board stronger, to make your team be able to work better together, and just, again, to know that, hey, we're all on the same page. We're all focused. We're all, in a good place. So the next one, and I'm behind on this, the next page is about the less often. And you guys didn't have any of those, which is great. No one said less often on any question, any statement throughout the entire evaluation. Not one. No yellows. So that's good. So we'll keep moving. So the blues. Now the blues are not bad. The blues are good. It just says that not everybody is thinking that we're there. Everybody's thinking we still have work to do in this area. And again, this tied with your greens, 48% of you, 48% of the 58 questions were scored almost always. But this is where I want to spend the time with you on for a little bit. Because if you look at your results and you look at some of the blues, you'll see that there might be 2 who said almost always, then 2 who said often, or 3 who said, and 1 who said less often, or 4 who said often, and 1 who said almost always. So there's some sporadic scores within the blues, which isn't a bad thing. It just says that there's either some confusion or not, everybody's not on the same page yet with those. There were some where you guys scored really, really in sync on this one, but there were some where you didn't. And so those are the ones that I'd like to work on tonight, if you guys are all on board and okay with that. Those are the ones I'd like for us to have some discussions about first. So the first one that I want to talk about is the understanding the roles and responsibilities of the board members, because some of your blues indicated that some felt that board members were doing their job, and doing things properly and following the any protocols that you guys have talked about amongst yourself, and then others did not. So I just want to take a quick minute just to kind of review the roles and responsibilities of the school board members. How many of you guys have gone through like the MIG training or the orientation for new trustees? Any of you guys with CSBA?
I did not.
For new trustees?
We went to the,
Okay. Same with you guys? So, well, I just want to take a quick moment just to review. So remember that when it comes to the school board members, we have certain roles and responsibilities that we have to adhere to. There are certain things that we can do, certain things that we should do, and certain things we should not do. And we have to make sure that we keep that separation. And if you look at the graphic here, it talks about the what and the how. The what is us, or you. And I still say us because I still go back into that school board member mode. So, but the what is what the board members do. The how is what the district is in charge of. So let's look at the what. The what, remember, it is value driven. It's your beliefs, your vision, mission, policies, and priorities. Those are the things that you guys are in charge of. So when it comes to building a mission statement, setting direction, evaluating your superintendent, coming up with what your goals are for the next year, your approving your LCAP. Those are all the things that you are in charge of. That's the what. Then the implementation of that and making it happen is the how, and that falls on your superintendent and their staff. So your action plans, the implementation, progress reports, that means they come to the board meeting and update you on things. All of that falls under the superintendent and staff. That's your administrators, teachers, and stuff. But you'll notice that there is that green section in the middle where the two do overlap. There is a part where you do come together, and that's when you do your strategic goals and your success indicators. So each year, when you guys are working on your LCAP and you're developing your goals for the upcoming year, that's where you guys are coming together. Everybody has some input on that one. And then the success indicators, how you're going to measure if you met those goals or not. That's something that everybody gets a say-so on. The what and the how people come together and work on that. So I just wanted to review that because I like this chart because it's very simple. But if you look at the next page in your handout, I gave you another chart with some examples of some roles and responsibilities on it. That's just very helpful. It shows what the school board is going to be doing and what the superintendent does. So while the school board governs the district, the superintendent is the one who advises the board and manages the district. Board meetings, you are in charge of the board meetings. Those are your meetings. Your superintendent is a resource for you for those meetings, and the staff, they're a resource for you for those meetings. Your budget, you all adopt it, you monitor it, you look at your audits, but it's the staff who puts it together and determines, okay, this is how much we can allocate here, and this is how much we can allocate there. And I know that one is hard because we all have our projects that we're passionate about, and we want to see more money go to those projects. I did. But we have to remember and trust that those people on the how, that they know what they're doing and that they know how much money we can allocate towards certain different projects. Like tonight, I heard you guys approve a purchase of a bus, right? So somebody here may have thought, well, why are we just getting one bus? Let's get 5 buses. But maybe your fiscal people know that you can't afford to get 5 buses right now. So that's where you rely on them and their expertise at.
She knows our fiscal person well.
Which one of you? Okay. But adopting policies, you know, you guys always vote on those at the board meetings. The policies come forth. They were developed by a superintendent and staff. And then you all read it, review it, ask questions, and then vote yay or nay. So you guys have the adoption of it. They put it together, and they explain to you why it's important and why you need it. And the facilities, you know, so on and so forth. You see the flow here. And you see, if you look in the school board column, everything there is about the what you need to do to get going. It's the idea, it's the direction. And then the other column for the superintendent is the, okay, let me go make this happen now. I talked to each one of you on the phone. My first question to all of you was, why did you run for school board? And when all of you answered it, your moral imperative came through. Everybody was passionate. Everybody said, you know, I've lived in this community. I'm committed to this community. My kids went through this district. My kids are in this district. I want to be involved. I want to give back. This is something where I feel like I can make a difference. You know, everybody had their reasons. They're passionate about it. What I did not hear from you was, I want to get on the school board so I can be the bus driver. I want to be on the board so I can be the teacher. I want to go on the board so I can, you know, go and coach the football team. None of you wanted to do that. And as a board member, you shouldn't want to do that. And again, because your position is to provide direction and support and then say, this is what we'd like to see. These are our goals. This is what we want for our district. And you go now and make it happen. So keep that in mind. Remember why you ran. This column here for the school board, that gives you the power and the authority to make sure that the things that your moral imperative says, that passion for student success and achievement, can happen. The other thing I want to talk to you about is the governance mindset. Because, again, the governance mindset as a governance team, you guys, is strategic. It's not administrative. As a board, your role is strategic. His role is administrative. The governance for the board is strictly strategic-based functions, those things that you have to get done, you have to vote on, you have to have approval for before they can move forward with the how. With the how. So don't get role confusion. I always say that it's hard. I'm an educator by day. So when I got on the school board, there was some role confusion for me because there were some things that I had more questions about, or was like, well, we should be doing this, or how come we're not doing that? Or I want to see this done. And I had to learn my role. So I can know my role and stay out of the weeds. I can ask questions. I can make suggestions, but it wasn't my position to be at the school site saying, well, if you guys just did this, this would make it all better. I know, I'm an educator. This can happen. That's not my role. So it took, some time to separate that. And I know lots of boards have educators on them. And when that happens, it takes us longer to adjust from that role confusion. So just remember, ours is the what? And then just remember that you guys govern as a board and not individual trustees. The superintendent has 5 bosses, but technically only 1. There's 5 individuals who make up 1 voice. So you can't each go to him and say, hey, I think that you need to tell the city we need a stop sign on Beach Avenue. Then the next one go and say, you know, I see they're putting up a stop sign on Beach Avenue. We don't need that. Then the next one comes and says, you know, I think we need a stoplight on Beach Avenue. You know, you guys have to speak as 1 voice. So when there's something that needs to be said, something needs to be accomplished, that's where your discussion comes in. That's where the trust comes in. That's where the honesty comes in, where you guys all talk about it and come to a decision on a process, procedure, implementation, whatever it is. So you could speak as 1 voice. He can't have 5 voices telling him this is what you should do, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. 1 voice that you provide direction to the superintendent on.
Question on that.
I was getting ready to say, let's take some questions or comments.
When are we able to talk at 1 voice for some of the discussion? So sometimes a closed session, you don't have the ability to say certain things on certain topics. The board meeting that we say, somebody brings up an issue that we can then talk about to say, here's 1 voice we want to direct, because we're not supposed to talk to each other outside.
You can talk to 1 person.
Right. So at what point are we allowed to have a conversation to get to that 1 voice?
So let me see. Let me think of an example here. Do you guys have Avid in your district?
Yeah.
Okay, I love the Avid program. So I was a very big fan of Avid. My kids went through Avid when they were in high school, and I just loved it. So I was Avid. Let's have Avid at every school, Avid everywhere, you know. So that was my thing, was Avid. But it wasn't on the agenda. And that somebody, a teacher, the Avid teacher, came to board meeting one night and spoke on it and was like, you know, I'd really like to see more funding for Avid. And of course, my ears perked up. I'm like, yes, I support that. Give them more money, you know. But it wasn't for me to just as 1 person to say. So what I could say at that meeting in open session was, Superintendent, I'm requesting that you look at the Avid budget and see how the funds are allocated, and please report to the board what the status is of their current funding and what they use the money on, and let the board know so that we can see if that's something that we need to speak with or talk about. And so then the superintendent would say, direction was provided at the board. The superintendent on our Friday letter gave us the information. This is how much this site gets. This is what they spent their money on. So everybody then had the information to look at and say, okay, is this something we want to move forward with or not? And then we could take it and put it on the agenda for discussion.
But if it didn't come up from a person and to talk about that until there's a situation arises for us to be able to talk about it.
So, see, but you can talk to 1 board member. Remember, if you talk to 2 board members, then that's a problem. That's a serial meeting. But you can talk to 1 board member. So let's say you were my board president and you called me and said, Angelina, help me understand why you want to see more money go to Avid. You and I can have that conversation. But then I can't turn around and have that conversation with Trustee Amata as well. I can have that conversation with you and you only, you know, and then you would have some better understanding of it. Then when you meet with the superintendent, because you're board president, you may want to say, well, I have a better understanding of why Angelina thinks that we need more funding, this and this and that. Give us some information. Give me some information. Can you include this in your Friday letter so that we all get the same information? Because we all should get the same information. So when you have that conversation with the superintendent and they put it in their Friday letter, they send it out, then everybody can say, okay, this is where we are with Avid, you know, let's put it, then you as the board president can decide Okay, yes, we're gonna put this on the next agenda so we can have a conversation about it in open session. Now, what shouldn't happen is me scheduling a meeting with the superintendent, just a one-on-one, and going in there and saying, no, you need to do this. I'm telling you, this is what you're gonna do. No. I can make a request, I can ask for information, but I cannot say, no, this is what you will do. That takes all 5 of us to do. So that's where we have to be careful, because there's a fine line between saying, can we look into this? Can we get information on this to see if there's something, that we could do, versus saying, no, this is a directive. I want you to do this.
If I'm hearing you clearly, it's more ideal to communicate to one other person / the president, who can communicate kind of questions or concerns, but individually to the superintendent, we can voice opinions, but not directives.
We can ask questions, like each one of you, I'm sure, meets with the superintendent on a regular. And when you have that meeting with the superintendent, you can ask those questions. There's nothing wrong with that, saying, so tell me, how do you decide how much money the Avid program gets? Are there grants that we get? How does the funding for Avid work? You can ask all of those questions of the superintendent, and that is totally fine. Again, the problem comes in when you say, well, give each school $20,000 more. That's not your position to say. That's the board's position to say. So that's where you have to be careful. Do not provide direction. You can ask questions, you can ask for information, but do not provide direction to him to make a decision that should be made by the board.
I appreciate President Trump bringing that up, because sometimes it does feel that we're not crossing districts, right? We're staying within our own district, like say District 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, right? Very isolated to, they're requesting certain needs for that specific school or two. At some point, we need to look past that and say, what do we need for all schools versus just 1 or 2 schools? Because it's always this school, this, that, and the other, right? But we need to be able to come across and, cross those lines to all schools, and also ask why, that school is getting whatever they're getting, right? Just to get information, right? Just to get that a clear picture of what's going on over there, or there can be a said, like, why is that? No, it's the opposite. The opposite side of town is getting more things than this side of town, right? And that's where we have to kind of come together and see in that direction.
And you know what, you actually touched on one of the other ones that I was going to address that was in the blue, that I'll take a little sidebar and go ahead and address that one right now, is that you guys are elected by trustee area, right? Remember, just because you're elected by trustee area, that is not the only group that you fight for. You fight for every school in this district, for every student in this district. One thing that I've seen, our district got a lawsuit that forced us to go by district. And one of the things that when we voted on that, our district, we had our president read a statement stating that we were still serving as one district, one student population. There wasn't this district, a little district here, a little district there, there weren't 5 districts. We were one district, because we still wanted to make sure that everybody in our community knew that every vote that we took was for every student in that district, not just for the schools that live, were across the street from my house, not just for the ones that were by trustee Ebbingham's house, that, we fought for every student, no matter what. And that's something that, as we've seen this district thing go into effect across California, some districts are struggling with that. I don't know if your district is, but some districts are struggling with that, because people get elected and think, this is mine. I only have to go to events in this area. I only have to serve the students from this area. No, you still go to events across every area. You still, go and support every student. It doesn't matter if they're from your trustee area or not. You go to every school, every district, every student. absolutely.
Sometimes it comes off as, caring about just that one, or that one school. A lot of times if, you know, you're in part of that community, you just tend to get more comments
Mhm.
because you're seen at that school.
Right.
I have kids at that school. I don't have kids at another school. That would be the reason why they're, about.
Oh,
our
absolutely.
schools. So it might come off as like only wanting it for one school, but it's really, that's all I'm hearing. Only, you know, these are the only people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I lived in a very unique place where there was a school right across the street from me. And then seriously, 1.5 blocks away, there was another school. And so I got
That's exactly me.
I got the feedback from all of it, and I was a walker, so I walk all the time, and the high school was only 3 blocks away. So I walked all the time. So like you, these people would come and ask me questions. So when I had my meeting with the superintendent, I did tend to ask a lot of questions about those 3 schools because those were the people that I saw the most, talked to the most. But I also still went to all the back-to-school nights at all the schools in our district. I would pick certain schools to go to back-to-school nights, certain schools go to open house nights. So, you know, it can't be everywhere. So I would divide them up. Okay, I'm going to go to this school's, you know, Christmas play or holiday play, but I'm going to go to this school's, you know, theater play during the spring. And so I would try to mix things up like that. So just that everybody at least got to see me and knew, okay, yes, she has asked a lot of questions about this school right across the street from her house, but we see her at our school all the time. You know, we see her at our dance recitals. We see her at our back-to-school nights, our open house. So as long as you're visible in the other ones and you make a point to, you know, interact with the families at those schools as well, then you should be fine. People should know that your heart is in the right place. We just have to be mindful that we don't get just tunnel vision on just the schools in our district. Look at everything. Listen to what your colleagues say about the schools by their houses as well, by their homes.
I'd like to piggyback on her comment. That was a good question Ms. Ahmad is mentioning. So communication sometimes, like, you know, she'll get, let's say, a lot of questions from her area, and some of us may not, or we do, depending. So I have a struggle sometimes with, at what point, so going back to communication. So we hear that. Where do we bring that up? Where do we bring that to discussion? If it's an important conversation for her, which she's hearing, which is valuable, as much as if another trustee is hearing it from their area. Again, so then in closed session, we don't have it on our item to talk about like voices in the community, unless
Right.
can we add that? I don't know. Like,
No.
you can't, right? So
No, you don't want to do that.
Oh, right. So then there's an
Yeah.
opportunity of where and when, if I hear nothing, because someone doesn't choose to tell me something, that's fine.
Right,
And somebody
right.
chooses to tell him something or her something, fine. But where do we get to talk about that? Because then if she's hearing that, we want to hear it. At the same time, she can filter, do I just go superintendent? Or at that, you know, that kind of.
You have to judge what it is you're hearing. Number one, when you have your one-on-one with the superintendent, you can let the superintendent know, hey, this is what I'm hearing in my area. Every time I met with my superintendent, I would tell her, okay, so when I was on my walk this week, this is what I heard, you know, and I would give her the rundown from everybody I encountered and what they told me. And then she would fill me in on if there was anything going on, you know. If it was something big, then it would be, she would put it in a Friday letter so that everybody else would know. If it's the small, you know, the scuttlebutt that you hear, you know, from all the times from the people in your community, you know, I don't like this teacher, they give too much homework, they, you know, those little things, those things you just respond to and say, you know, well, talk to your principal, you know, about that. You redirect. You talk to your principal. Did you let them know about that? Did you talk to the teacher, your kid's teacher, about that? You want to redirect those small things. If it's something big, then you immediately let the superintendent know. I gave a perfect example the last workshop that I was doing. I was at a school, and normally, you know, you see things happen at a school, or you see things that may seem a little, you know, odd to you, and you can bring them up in your one-on-one with the superintendent. But sometimes there's things where you immediately need to notify your superintendent. I was at one of our high schools. There was a fight, and it took forever for somebody to get out there and break it up. We have campus security, we have administrators, but these kids had a nice little amount of time to fight before somebody arrived to break it up. That, to me, was important. I called the superintendent, and one of the kids was bleeding, and said, hey, you or your designee needs to get over here right now because this is a problem. Because why was that a bigger problem? Why was that a problem that deserved like some immediate direction from one board member? What was the difference there? Exactly. Health and safety. Number one, we need to make sure that a kid who's bleeding is okay. Number two, we need to make sure that we're protecting all of our other students and our staff. Number three, we need to find out what went wrong, where it took so long for campus safety or an administrator to get out there and break it up. There was a lot of serious questions that could be a problem for the district legally as well. So those type of things, don't think that, okay, maybe I should call the board president. No, you hop on that cell phone and you call the superintendent. And if the superintendent doesn't come, that's fine. He may say, hey, I'm sending my assistant sup of ed services over there, or I'm sending my assistant sup of this, or the director of this. But somebody from the district office, gets over there to do an investigation with the principal, in partnership with the principal. So there's sometimes where there's things that you'll see or you'll hear that do require immediate attention. There was a time where I heard some stuff from a parent while I was on one of my walks, and I was thinking, that can't be true. I know that couldn't have happened. Our superintendent would have told us about that because it was something big. And I finally decided to talk to the superintendent and just say, hey, I heard something really strange today, and this is what they told me happened. And the superintendent is like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. I was like, you haven't heard anything about this? Superintendent said, no. So superintendent's like, let me look into this. Turns out what I heard was correct. It did happen. And nobody told the superintendent. Needless to say, that was not a good thing for that individual who did not alert, the district office about what had happened. But if you hear something off, immediately call. If it's something just doesn't sound right, or something that you weren't alerted about in your Friday letter, because I'm sure your superintendent gives you information when things like big things happen where they may hear about it in the community, because that's important.
Small community.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's important because, if he hears about a lunchroom brawl that happened at one school and doesn't fill you guys in, and then you're in the grocery store one day and a parent says, so what are you guys going to do about all those kids who got involved in that lunchroom brawl? The last thing you want to do is stand there looking like a deer in the headlights saying, what lunchroom brawl? Those are things that you guys need to know about right away. All 5 of you, not just the board president, all 5 of you. And if it's something super urgent where press might show up, that warrants a quick text or something like that. Hey, this is happening. I'm getting more details. I'll be in touch. Superintendent would send us a quick text and just say, letting you know there's a situation. Police are here at the school or that school. I'll be in touch with more details as soon as I get them.
And I will say, I don't think our board has that problem because our superintendent has that open door policy. He calls us from, anytime he's available, whenever we need him, he is available to us. So I don't think we can say that is an issue with our.
Good, yeah. But it's just distinguishing what's important and what's just like the normal. I don't want to discount any parent or any community member's concern about anything. It's always important that you listen to what they have to say. Even if you hear it 1,000 times over from the same parent, it's still important to listen. But there's some way you'll know to just, like I said, redirect them back to the school, redirect them back to school. You may want to mention it during your one-on-one, but it's not something that you need to go to the board president and say, hey, we need to put this on the agenda to discuss it. But if there's something that's big, you know, then that's different. That requires a different path of maybe having a discussion with the superintendent, asking the board president to put something on the agenda for discussion so you can have it as a discussion item in open session.
I think that's one thing we haven't ever utilized in the last 3 years, because we're 3 of us are new,
Okay.
or came on at the same time.
Right.
Is leveraging the discussion calendar or discussion topics.
Yeah.
I think everyone kind of just goes with and not going through the protocol or having a protocol of how to bring items up in discussion. That's why I'm realizing right now is a lot of protocols were assumed, but as a team, we've never had protocols or norms. And I think that's probably going to come up in discussion so that we can understand how to get certain things discussed appropriately. And
I want to
discuss-
caution you.
Yeah.
Don't overwhelm the discussion column. Don't think that you got to throw everything
Right.
on there.
Right.
Be selective.
But
And
a
make
conversation
sure
with the
some-
president,
Yeah.
Susan, like, we never utilize it that
Yeah.
way, but like
Right.
having a norm, say, board president talk to say, is this an item we want to put on the agenda, then talk to the superintendent.
Yeah.
But we don't have that
Because,
discussion.
right, because some of the things may be things that could be addressed in the Friday
Right.
letter.
Right.
And so you don't want to overwhelm your discussion time where your meetings are going to midnight because there's 20 the things you want to have a discussion on. But there are some things that do warrant, hey, this one we need to talk about because this is related to resources. This is related to safety of our students and staff. So there's some things that you do want to take the time to put on there. Absolutely.
Just a comment, I think, I've been learning through like coaching from my work and so forth, and I'm just applying it here, is we're all problem solvers here.
Mhm.
I think we're very empathetic hearts. So we're very passionate, right? And you sense that we do that.
Right.
But I think sometimes assuming positive intent on both sides sometimes doesn't come into our filters because we're so worried about trying to solve a problem, trying to get the conversation, trying to fix, that assuming positive intent I think is very valuable and important to decipher, is it important or is it something I can redirect?
Right.
Because if I assume positive intent on the person who's telling me a story and how I want to address it with the superintendent, positive intent on both sides dictate for me what is considered something I should bring up or discuss, or I can handle on my own. Just want to throw that out there because I just was thinking a lot and reflecting. And I think sometimes I think I'm doing everything under assuming everyone has positive intent, but sometimes not, because I'm going and thinking something negative about either why they're coming to me, or I want to just fix it because I feel like it's coming from a negative place, versus assuming that everyone has a positive intent and why they're sharing with me, as well as how I want to address with the superintendent or with each other, because there has to be assumption of positive intent. If not, we're going to be fighting, or we're going to assume negative things.
Right.
And I think that's important. I just want to throw that out there because I feel like
That's
sometimes
a very good point. And the other thing with positive intent is sometimes we don't assume positive intent because of just a comment somebody may have made in passing. And it couldn't even, maybe it's not even related to that. Like, maybe I heard Trustee Fruto say, have it, there's 1,000 programs out there like it. And so I think, he doesn't like Avid, And it could have just been a generic comment, and he actually supports the Avid program in our district because it does good work, but maybe he was just saying there are lots of other programs out there like Avid. So then he comes at me, he says something about it. I'm not going to assume positive intent because all of a sudden in my head, I have it in my head that because of one little statement, he doesn't like Avid. So we have to take a step back, like you said. We do need to assume positive intent when people talk to us. And that goes back to the trust thing, too. We have to trust that everybody has the best interest in mind for everything that we discuss. The good, the bad, and the ugly, the great, the wonderful, the phenomenal, everything. We have to trust, and we do have to assume positive intent. And sometimes it's hard, but we have to be mindful of it and keep that in there. One of the other things while we're kind of talking about that is body language and how we react when somebody is talking about something in board meeting. I always tell them that there was one trustee who used to be on our board who during board comments would go on for like maybe 10, 15 minutes. And after a while, you know, it was at the end of our meeting, so it's like we did ours at the end, and it's like 10:30, and I'm ready to go home. I got to get up at 4, and that trustee was still talking, and I'm like, you know, I'm looking at my watch, and that wasn't good because one day the trustee approached me and said, "Do you think my board comments are too long?" And when you're put on the spot, you know, it's hard. And I was like, well, you know, you have the most detailed ones out of everybody. She says, well, you're always looking at your watch, and I see your facial expressions. And I had to become aware of it, and I felt horrible. I apologize. I felt horrible, but we did have a conversation about it, maybe trimming it down just a little. But I did feel horrible because my body expression, my body language, you know, was saying, hey, I'm not listening to you. Please stop. I don't want to hear this. And that was not appropriate. And so sometimes one of us might say something even during a discussion of an agenda item that we don't agree with. Somebody may make a comment that we really don't agree with. And it may be something we're very passionate about. And then we're like, remember, the people sitting in the audience are watching online. They see that. Your person who's talking may see that. And then that can create a lot of friction and issues within the board. So we have to be mindful of those things as well. So not just the positive intent, but we have to watch how we react, how we respond, our body language. All of those things come into play. So keep that in mind as well. Any other comments on this part? I know we went down a long road, but that was a good conversation. I'm glad we had it. And then just finally, you know, just remember, you know, as effective trustees, you got to keep learning and student achievement at the forefront. Every decision you make is related to that in some way, shape, or form. Stay focused on your strategic goals and the district goals. Stay focused on those. Always go back to those. When you're asking for something, when you want to do something, when you're looking at data, keep that in mind. And don't get distracted by administrative functions. Remember, know your role. That's not your job. Administrative function goes to the superintendent and his team. And then, again, don't represent one group or one agenda item or one program. Fight for everything that you think is beneficial for the students. And again, we all have our things we're passionate about. You know, I definitely did. But we have to remember we represent every student in this district. So let's look at what's doing the best for the students and make our decisions off of that. So moving forward, you know, we have to talk about one of the questions on here was related to the evaluation of the superintendent. And there was some sporadic responses on that one too. So I wanted to spend a moment on that. Remember that when you evaluate your superintendent, it's not just about the contract extension or a salary increase. It's about, did the superintendent stay passionate about moving the district forward? Is the superintendent meeting the goals that you gave them? How many of you guys, how many of you guys have done like more than one evaluation for your superintendent? Oh, you guys have done 3? Okay, good. So then you've gone through this process on a regular. So then you know that every year you as a board should be having a conversation with your superintendent to say, here's the goals that we would like for you to achieve. Give us your thoughts about the goals that we're setting forth. And the reason I say that is because the superintendent should get input on the goals that you all are evaluating them on. And here's why. It goes back to the what and the how. You guys may think that having Avid at every school is a goal that you want for your superintendent. But the superintendent knows that the needs at these 5 schools are very, very different. And Avid isn't going to work over there. And it's going to be a problem. And it's going to be a waste of money and time. And so if you guys don't allow the superintendent to give you some input and feedback on some of the goals, and you just say, nope, that's the goal, and then the superintendent does it, and it doesn't work, and you guys say, see, look, you did not do this. You didn't do well because this didn't work at these 5 schools. It was horrible. We wasted money, blah, 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 blah. You know, we're going to mark you down for that. That's not fair. You guys have to remember that the superintendent knows the school sites a lot better than we do because they have to look at a lot more data than we do. They have a whole team that reports to them, that gives them information on what's going on at their school sites, within the district and their departments, and they know these things. So, like I said about the one about, you know, the buses, buying the buses, and the money is not available. And if you guys force that as a goal, buy 5 buses, and then he takes money from somewhere else, then you guys might come back and complain later, well, why did this get defunded? Because I had to take the money from there to buy the buses. So the superintendent's goals that they're evaluated on should be discussed between the board and the superintendent. Typically, that's done in closed session because it's a personnel issue. So district goals, public, open session. The superintendent goals, that's a personnel one because they're linked to the district goals, but you guys need to be able to have a more green conversation about them. So that's done in closed session. And you guys talk about it. And the superintendent can tell you, yes, we can do this. Or yes, this is a good goal and it's linked to our LCAP and it's linked to, you know, what our mission and vision are for the district. And you guys can work on them together and move them forward. Are there questions about that part?
What would you recommend as a timeline in terms of boards? Do they set the superintendent goals every year? A different, like how many goals and like timeline? What would you say? So I'm assuming you start off, if the superintendent's eval was like in July or August, do we meet like the month after start creating the new goals for that year? Or do you keep an ongoing goal that existed for the previous 2-3 years?
There's going to be some goals that are going to be ongoing because they're linked to your LCAP and they're things that, you know, the superintendent should be doing. But the other goals, like if there's more specific goals that maybe you guys put in your LCAP one year, or you put them as strategic goals for the district, those type of goals, those will change, may change from year to year, or be tweaked or adjusted from year to year. If you do a superintendent's evaluation every July, that superintendent needs to have their goals before school starts because they need to jump on it. Because remember, it's a trickle-down thing. You give him his goals, what does he do? Looks over there and says, guess what our goals are? And then what do? They look at their school sites and their staff and says, guess what our goals are? So it's not just one person. It has to be spread out to let everybody know. He can't meet those goals alone. He needs his team to do it. He needs the district staff to help him. So he has to know what those goals are before school starts because he needs to be able to have time to plan with his staff and to work with them so that they're ready to jump into it immediately.
So if we eval in like June, so you could set the goals in July, that would be probably like a time frame.
That would be a better time frame, yeah.
And do you do mid-year evals or like meets?
I encourage a mid-year evaluation because it's a check-in point. And that way, if there are any areas where things have changed, then you guys can look at the goals together to reevaluate it. Or if there's something you feel he feels like is unreasonable or something you guys feel he's not doing, you guys can then have a discussion about it right then and there so that it doesn't linger till the end. You don't want any surprises at the end. You want to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
So then if we do, like, there's guidelines, I'm assuming, from CSBA that says here's some areas, or we have like 6 priority topics in our vision or in our LCAP, whatever it may be. Just like how we do eval process, one board, one voice, eventually, in terms of how we do comments and setting the goals, the same idea we set, like, we did this
You guys
vote on.
work together, decide the goals, and don't overwhelm them with a bunch of goals. Remember, they still have to run the district too. So don't give them like 12 goals and say, yeah, here's 12 things, you know, keep that in mind. Also, one thing that I'm saying to all of my districts that I'm working with right now is to remember where we are right now. We have just come out of we're coming out of a pandemic, and things changed a lot, a whole lot. And because of all the things that went on during the pandemic, there's going to be some shifts in the data that we receive and don't receive. So right now, there's still a fog where we as districts don't really still know exactly where we're at, where our students are at. We're still looking at the money thing too from the state. You know, there's a lot of things we're looking at that we need to be cognizant of when we're setting the goals for the superintendent and for yourselves as board members too. We have to keep those things in mind because there's a lot of variables that normally aren't there, and they're there now. So we have to be careful. I mean, like the last 2 years, basically the goals that, you know, before I had gotten off the board, the goals we had set for our superintendent went out the window because of COVID. You know, everything that we had laid out so nice and pretty, it didn't apply anymore. We had to shift. Your goal right now is to make sure all of our students have technology and have a hotspot, and, you know, that our teachers are trained in online instruction, and, you know, totally different. We had to, just throw that away and we'll get back to it another time. Let's get to this. And things like that are going to continue to happen for a minute here. So be careful. Don't overwhelm yourself with the process right now as far as trying to throw in a lot of new things, because we're still coming out of this pandemic. We still need at least a year to try to get things back on track, back on a schedule. So I'm sure I don't know, don't tell me whether you guys have to set the goals for the superintendent evaluation or not. If you haven't, please keep those things in mind. If you have, at the mid-evaluation point, please keep those things in mind if things have not been achieved or are going slower than what you want them to. Keep those things in mind. And then once, you know, all of this finishes blowing over and we get back to our normal, then you can go back and uncrumble that piece of paper that you tossed to the side before and say, okay, we're back to these now. These are the things that we want you to do now. This is what's important. Any questions on that? Now, the other thing is, if you go to the next paper, the next slide, you know, the board superintendent evaluation, that's part of the board superintendent relationship. You guys have to evaluate the superintendent so that they know how they're doing. And then the evaluations, you know, they should not be viewed as punitive. That's important, but rather as a way of bringing your relationship together, working together. How can we support you in this? And that's the other thing too. Here's one of my sidebars. The goals that you lay out for your superintendent, make sure that they are achievable, because if you say to the superintendent, one of the goals is to increase professional development for all of the K through 6 teachers in reading. We want you to get them more professional development on teaching reading because our reading scores are low. And then the next board meeting, you vote to reduce the professional development budget by 25%, that's a problem. So if you give the superintendent a goal, you also must provide them with the resources to achieve that goal. So when you give those goals, when you guys sit down together and develop those goals, one of the questions that should be asked at that time is, what do you need from us in order to help you to be successful? Any principal at a school who has a teacher who just starts and they're working with that teacher, getting them acclimated to that site and to their position, they should be saying the same thing to their teacher. What can I do? Let me know if you need some support. Classified staff, you get a new person in the office. Let me know if there's something you need from me to help you, with your job. We don't just send people out and just say, do this, not at any level. So we have to provide the support and the resources that they need in order to be successful. Because remember, again, he can't do it by himself. He has a whole team that he's also going to need to provide resources for to help him to meet those goals. And then the other part is when you, let's see, yeah, we can go to next page. When you look at the process of doing the evaluation, the actual eval, so you gave the goals, time has gone by, June comes, okay, time for us to write the annual evaluation. Then you got to remember, you got to make sure again that the goals that you gave were focused on student achievement. Everything should be linked to student achievement in some way. Also, they should be aligned with your LCAP. And then remember to say not just things that you want to see improved. You say the things you want to see improved, but also commend them on the things that they did achieve and that works for them. Continuous improvement for the district is important, and that's something that you want to acknowledge during the evaluation process. Also, you want to make sure that the evaluation process is fair and it's equitable, and that's why you come together to develop it. And you see my little cartoon strip, and you see all the different animals, and they're all getting, their evaluation, getting evaluated the same way. And you can't do that. You got to make sure that what you give the superintendent as the goals and what you're going to evaluate them on is fair and equitable. Don't give him something that's out of reach of this district. Don't give him something that doesn't link up to student achievement. Give him the things that are going to make your district better and going to move forward and align with what you put in your LCAP. The other thing is when you do your evaluation, again, remember, one voice. You guys are one voice. So all of you contribute to the evaluation process that you write up for him, but it has to be one voice and no surprises. So if there was anything put that comes up that wasn't one of the goals that you set forth for him. So if somebody says, yeah, well, he met all those goals, but we still don't have those 5 school buses, that does not go in the evaluation. That's irrelevant. That's a side conversation with the superintendent about still wanting the 5 buses. That is not part of the evaluation because that was not a goal that you had for him.
I think in the past, our board we've lost that in translation, right? What is a directive for the superintendent to follow for the district? And what is a personal directive for him to follow, off to the side, like what should go in his board evaluation, right? Like, what I say or my public comments for his evaluation, does that go in that evaluation as a personal official document or off to the side, right? Because in the past, we want to include things that should only be talked about off to the side or personally with the superintendent to clarify any disagreements or any point of views as far as, for example, how they want to be communicated, right? And I think that should be like more of a personal directive and conversation that should be talked off to the side versus what the goal is really at hand, right? What is the actual directive that we want to give them to follow for the entire district?
what should be written in the evaluation is only related to the goal. Personal opinions should not go into the evaluation. Let's say, let me give an example. Let's say one of the things you are evaluating the superintendent on is, or one of the goals set for the superintendent was to, let's see, trying to think of a good example. Enrollment. Let's say it was to increase enrollment. No, I know one that comes up a lot is communication with the community. That's always seems to be a big one that I see a lot, is to enhance the communication with the community, so that they feel we're more transparent and that you're connecting with them more. So enhancing communication with our stakeholders, the parents in the community. So you put that down there and, say we want them to, have a more positive view of our district and feel more comfortable coming to the district office, or, they feel like they're getting good information from us. So the first thing you have to do is, how can you measure that? Okay, what is your success indicator? So let's say your district does a district survey, a community survey every year, and there's 3 questions on that survey that's related to, do you think we're, giving you enough information? Do you feel like we're transparent? Do you feel like we're communicating with you? So you get the survey results, and they come back in the superintendent's favor that, yes, the district has, it went up, 18 points, that now they feel like we're being more transparent and we're communicating with them better. So you write an evaluation and you're doing that. But let's say, and I'm just using you as an example because you're sitting next to me, let's say Trustee Ahmad has been in her community where her, and people keep saying to her, we don't feel like the district keeps us informed. We don't feel like we're hearing this. So she has a different view. So the survey results say, yes, communication has improved, but the people at her school site are saying, no, it hasn't improved. So then when you all sit down to write that evaluation, what you should do is, number one, have a conversation. She should tell you guys, hey, I know the survey, which is the results went up 18 points, which is great, but I'm still hearing that people are not feeling like the communication is there. So what you could do in that case is, he met the goal. You guys told him to improve communication. The survey results, which is a success indicator because it's data driven, says he met the goal, right? So you can't say he did not meet the goal. What you can say is, in the comments, the people at the superintendent has met this goal, but the people, however, the people at Pride Elementary School still feel like there's more room for improvement in this area. So you're not saying that he didn't meet the goal. He met the goal. He did exactly what you guys told him to do, and he should be commended for it. But you can say in there that, the people at Pride Elementary School are still feeling this. Or here's what I would do. When you meet with your superintendent to give him an evaluation, you guys have a dialogue at that time, right? That's when I would bring it up. So I personally would not even put it on paper. I would just say, go Met, whatever. And then when we had our discussion, when we gave him the evaluation and went through with him, I would tell him, okay, the people at Pride Elementary School, though, are still saying this. They're saying that they don't get this, they don't hear this, they don't hear that. Because obviously there is an issue there that needs to be addressed. But he still met the goal. But now he knows that there's an issue at Pride Elementary School, he can address that. And then you can ask for follow-up on that specifically. You can say, hey, can you start looking into this? Can you see what the communication flow is, from the principal there, that that comes from the district office, that the messaging is getting down to everybody, And then you can say, let me know. And then you can follow up with parents and say, hey, are you guys getting more information? You can do it that way. And that way is more appropriate. And I think that it works to get the job done better. Because if there's only one site that's saying that, you don't want to change everything everywhere because of one site. That's not going to help. And it might make things worse if everybody else is doing what they're supposed to do. So maybe it's just an issue at this one site. So during the discussion is when I would address it. And if there's other things too, where people feel like, yeah, he met this goal, and things are going better and things are doing well, but we still want to see some work here. You can say that during the verbal part. But the evaluation should be no surprises. It should be fair and equitable, and it should be what you guys came to an agreement on, what it was going to be. So we had actually had a facilitator come in one time for my board because we had some different personalities on the board, and we struggled through the evaluation process, and it didn't go well. So after that, we started having a facilitator come in and work with us, and it just helped because they just said, okay, let's stop, let's take a break. Is this related to this? Is this, that? And we got through the process much easier, and everybody left the room still liking one another. So the evaluation process can be tough, but just something that you just have to really focus on and take the time and commitment to doing it and doing it right.
So I think as a board, we've kind of set the goal. I think when Ms. Castaneda was the president, when we set goals then, and we learned we didn't really readjust after 2 years. So we were kind of going off those goals. And, we were very new. So I think now we have a better understanding of how to approach, which was a key element I'm hearing is data-driven results.
Yes.
Because a lot of times you can set a goal, and then I think evaluation is a big word. I think everyone out here too probably knows. Like when you hear evaluation, you get all nervous.
Yeah.
I'm going to, if I don't do well, I'm going to get fired. Like that's the intense feeling. And I appreciate, I think that's the lens I like to look at, because I think evaluating is also coaching, right? You're trying to support. Yes. And so when I set a goal, I'm very hard on myself. So I set my goals high. I think all of us, we like to set goals high, and we beat ourselves up for not reaching it, but we set the bar high. I think everyone in this room does that. And everyone here knows they meet it. Versus, but I feel like we have, and whatever situations occur, sometimes good goals that don't link to a way to grow. And I think I appreciate your sharing. It's a way to cement our relationship with each other as well as the superintendent. But what we don't often do is progress monitor. So we wait till the end. A whole year is a long time. So we set a goal in June, and we don't talk about it until following June because everything happens in between. So we're very passionate, as you tell, we're emotional.
Right.
So certain things stick more recent than later.
Right.
So then those sometimes affect us all individually in our own ways. And then we're trying to find a way to communicate that. So in a progress monitoring on goal setting, how do we look at that and say, hey, let's talk about kind of ongoing, are we seeing something that's not happening? Is that counted as a closed session personnel?
So the midterm check-in with the superintendent for the evaluation is a closed session because it's personnel. Anything related to his evaluation is closed session. All of it. So at a midpoint, when you guys give him his goals, then you determine, okay, this is when we're going to do the midpoint check-in, and then this is when we're going to do the formal evaluation. So then when you do that midpoint check-in, he should come to you with something to say, this is where I'm at with all your goals. Our superintendent would, write the goal out, put what she's done, what she's currently still working on, and what she hasn't started on yet. So we knew exactly where she was on every goal that we gave her. And then we could ask questions. If we didn't think she had made enough progress on something, we can ask why wasn't more progress made? Oh, because this happens more in the spring than the fall. Okay, makes sense. So we would have a discussion about it. about everything at that point. So that's where you can say, okay, yes, things are going well, or hey, we're a little concerned about this. This is looking a little red flaggish here. That's where you have the concern, that discussion, and it's closed session. So we're all good on that? So the next thing I want to talk to you about that I noticed on the blues, and I'm sorry, I haven't even checked our time. What time is it? Okay, I'm going to make sure I stay on schedule. And tell me if you guys need a quick break of any kind. Let me know. So the next thing I want to talk about is something that is huge for me with any board that I work with, new and old. And it's this slide here. The board should be unified but not uniform. The reason I put this one in here is I was looking at some of your blues, but they were like still scattered. Everybody's on board, but they were on board at different levels. Is people think that a board has to always have a 5-0 vote. You don't. You can have a 3-2 vote. You can have a 4-1 vote. It doesn't matter. What matters is, are you unified? You don't have to be uniform. You don't have to agree with everything. You guys can have some passionate debate in closed session. You may even have one in open session. We've had a few in open session, and that's okay. As long as you're respectful of one another, as long as we watch our body language and don't make faces like I did. But you don't have to be uniform. You don't have to be alike. You don't have to be in sync. And that's why I always use that picture, because everybody's holding hands because they're connected, but they are different colors because they all have different opinions. So unified means that if we have a vote on something and it's 3-2 and it's about Abbott funding and I'm on the 2 side, and so I lose and Abbott's not getting that funding that I wanted, when I walk out this room, and I step down from that dais and I walk out this room, and somebody says to me, that's awful. They didn't vote for your Abbott funding. My response should not be, I know, I'm really mad at them. I can't believe they did that. I hate all of them. I'm not gonna vote on their stuff anymore. That should not be how it goes. It's majority rule. We're adults. So when that vote is 3-2, if I lose, even though I may be upset and passionate about it, when I walk out that door and somebody says, that sucks, look what they did, I should say, I support the decision of the board. And I should leave it like that. I shouldn't pull out my phone and get on Instagram. I don't like these board members, none of that. I should just accept the fact. And that's the part of being unified, because we're one team, we're one voice. We don't have to agree and we don't have to like every outcome or every vote, but we do have to support it because it's majority rule. So whatever we voted on, it's gonna happen. We just need to now work to make sure it happens in the best way possible, whether we agreed with it or not. That's our job as a board member. And so that's one thing that I always want every board that I work with to take from a workshop that I do. I put this slide in every workshop. I don't care what it's about. I put this slide in there because it is so essential to having a strong governance team. When did you go through the orientation for new trustees? Was it recent?
No, it was
Okay.
more than 3 years.
Okay, because when I was facilitating the orientation for new trustees, and the part of the orientation, one of the slides is my first year. And so they always have me talk about my first year as a board member. And I always tell people my first year as a board member was pure hell. It was chaos. Our district was in chaos. We were at impasse with our unions when I got elected. We had an interim superintendent who nobody wanted. The community was mad. The teachers were ready to picket and riot. It was a mess. It was like the worst time to get elected to anything. And we had a very fractured board because we had people who were aligned with some of the people the incumbents who didn't win their seats, that myself and somebody else took their seat, so they didn't like us because of the stuff we said at the campaigns, and it was a mess. When we had a vote that was, and we rarely had a 5-0 vote on anything. As soon as that meeting was over, Facebook was blowing up because board members were on there. They were posting stuff. Things were being said. We were getting calls. It was not unified at all, not at all. And the public just thought, okay, all these people are crazy. The teachers union and the classified union tried to use it to their advantage for leverage for negotiations because you split the board, all they needed was 3. So it was a mess. We got nothing accomplished, nothing. And it wasn't until we had one person leave, and that helped, and another person came on, and then we started going through the trainings, as myself and the other new board member, and learning some of these things and these techniques and what our role was, what we should and should not be doing. We were doing a lot of stuff we should not be doing. And that's when our board started to get better and make progress. And after the next election, we really had a unified board. We still didn't always agree. And like I said, we had some very good debates, but we were always respectful with one another during those debates. We would always still support whatever the decision was when we left that room. And that was the one thing I hated about having to step down from my board, was because we had such a good unified board. We were not uniform by any means. There were plenty 4-1, 3-2 votes, but we worked together because we knew that this is what the vote was. We supported. There were no Facebook or Instagram posts. There was no running off talking to my neighbor about it. We worked together and we supported one another, whether we liked the vote or not. What can we do to make the best of it? How can we keep this going? And it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. It took us a long time to get there, but we did with a lot of hard work. You guys seem to be a very good board. I don't see that any of you guys have any visually animosity with one another. I didn't hear that during my conversations with you. I heard a lot of respect for this board and this governance team. So I hope that you guys will continue to build on that and continue to be unified, but you don't have to be uniform. You do not always have to agree. You can have your own opinion, and you can say what your opinion is respectfully, and at the vote, you support it, and you move on. Any questions on that? And then the realities of being a school board. You campaign as an individual, but then all of a sudden you have to leave that out and you become part of a team. I admit, when I ran, I used to go to school board meetings only when there was something that I was passionate about as a parent. I would go and, my sign and everything, or go speak at public comments, or if my kid was getting an award. That was the only time I went to board meetings. I didn't go just to find out what they did. When I decided to run, I started going, but I still didn't know exactly what was all entailed until much later. But when you're campaigning, you're like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that. And you get to the room where it happens, and you find out you have no power as an individual. None. You have power as a team, but not as an individual. And it changes your whole perspective. You don't have authority to fix anything that you campaigned on as an individual, that you do as a team. Your success as a board member, remember, is tied to the success of your team, all 5 of you. All 5 of you work together and stay strong, then some of these blues are going to be green next time. And then, just stay focused on being a good board member and, a good trustee. Your manners, your confidentiality. Be prepared. Be committed to the work. One of the things that frustrated me the most when I was a new board member was one board member would show up for board meeting with their packet, opening it, while we're sitting at the table in closed session. And I'm like, are you serious? You know, how can you be prepared if you didn't look at the packet? We asked for this information. This team puts this information together. The least we could do is be respectful and go through it and be prepared to ask questions. And then they would ask questions that were answered in the packet. And they weren't asking for the community. They were asking because they didn't read their packet. And it was frustrating. So be prepared. Don't be that person. And then just remember, you know, the human experience of it, patience, understanding, courage, and the most important part, sense of humor. That you have to have that. You can't tell because we all wear masks now, but I'd say 80% of the time I have a smile on my face. I live alone. I'm cleaning the house and I'll realize I'm smiling, and I don't like cleaning the house. That's just me. That's just my nature. That's what everybody knows me like. You're always so happy. You're always so happy. Even when I'm not happy, I tend to smile. But the reason is just because it makes me feel good. You know, we have to have that sense of humor. We get pushed with so much stuff every day. You guys hear so much stuff every day when you visit your school sites and when you're out in the community. You hear the good and the bad. And, you know, if you just keep letting it get to you without having that sense of humor, being able to laugh at some things, whether you don't do it in front of them, wait till you walk away. But it just helps you. It helps you get through the tough times. It really, really does. So just maintain that sense of humor. Did anybody need a quick break? Are we okay? You need a quick stretch break, water break?
I need a stretch because of my knee.
Okay.
I think I would.
Okay, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and finish up our next part. So you live really close to the schools too?
Yeah, walking distance. And then our middle school.
Yeah, across the street from my house was a park, and next to the park was the elementary school. And then the elementary school, you go down half a block, and there was one of our K through 8. And then from the K through 8, you go up a block and a half and cross the busy street, and there is our high school.
Our school is not far from here because we only.
Right, you guys are elementary.
But,
Yeah.
like you said, anytime you walk or anytime you're standing in front of your house, you're a bit of that you're only.
Yeah.
Really tough.
Yes, what you
That's
hear.
great.
Yeah. Yeah, because I would hear the stuff from those three.
Yeah.
And I had the luxury, I lived on both sides of my Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's my grandson.
So I just gave all of you a sheet that I brought it with me, but I wasn't sure if we were gonna have the time to do it. But I think we're doing really good on time, so I want to take a second to do this one. So this activity here, I would like for you to take a minute and just answer those 5 short questions. Don't give it a whole lot of thought. Just answer those 5 questions and let me know when you're done. And what you do is, on lines A, B, C, and D, if whichever one you feel is most like you, you're gonna rank them 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 1 is the one that's most like you, 2, 3, and 4, etc. So do that for each of the 5 questions. It's really short, really easy. While you guys do that, I'm gonna have a piece of candy that some evil person put in front of me.
It's a doctor, so you know it's good. It's okay. Put it there, you're good.
Don't overthink it. You have one too, Dr. Miramontes.
I'm on it.
Just put rank each letter 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on which one you think gives you the most. It's the number 1. So once you're done, then you go to the second page and you score it. You guys are fast. So you put, like, if you gave on question number 1, or whatever number you put next to A, put that number there. And then add up the totals by letter. I would have brought copies for your whole team. I didn't know we were gonna have the whole team. But I can give you a blank one if they want to do one. Whoever decides they want to do it. Cabinet. Oh. It's so easy and quick. That's why I like this one. Not that long thing. You're done, huh? Yeah. Your, now your score is not the highest one. It's the lowest one she has now.
But do you add them up at the bottom?
Yep. Your lowest score is what you are.
Which really confused me the first time.
Yeah. And don't look at the score sheet until you finish.
involved.
I was gonna say, I already know.
That doesn't work.
Wait.
I think the thing that and the reason I like this exercise a lot is because number one, it's really short. Number two, it's pretty accurate. Number three, a lot of times people are surprised at what other people are. Sometimes even the people that take it are surprised. The lowest number.
First, I was like, what? The lowest score.
Oh, really?
Me. That's why he needs me.
We're like perfect.
Is everybody done? Okay. So let's start with our superintendent. Tell me what you are.
I am 3 and 4.
You gotta give me a,
Amiable and expressive.
you were what?
Amiable and expressive.
Oh, okay.
Sensitive, inclusive,
Aaron,
picture.
That's high.
where were you?
I'm at analytical and driver.
Okay. Trustee Ahmad?
Analytical.
Trustee Sheet?
My lowest was driver.
The driver? Okay. Trustee Frutos?
Analytic.
And Trustee Chong, we already know you're analytic.
No, I'm
Or
amiable
driver.
and expressive.
Get here.
Right, for those two, yeah.
I had you pegged totally wrong.
Really?
Yeah.
He does surprises from time to time.
Very early on.
There's my humor. Analytical and amiable.
Are you guys surprised about your work style? You're surprised?
Surprise.
With
I'm surprised at Trustee Chong.
You aren't zero?
Um,
And you
are you, so you guys are, but you're not surprised about your own,
Oh, no,
but you're surprised at some of the other people.
because I've done something similar to this, and that's always for myself.
Well, the reason why, like I said, this one is really short, you know, sweet to the point, pretty accurate. And the reason why I like to do this one is because sometimes working together as a governance team, what helps is to know what our working style is. Because, like with Trustee Chong, I totally pegged him as an analytical. And so I would be approaching him as him being an analytical, thinking he wanted this, this, and this. Then it turns out that he's amiable and expressive. So he probably would listen to me and be like, why is she talking to me like this and giving me all this stuff? I'm not interested in that. So if you look at the sheets that I gave you, the first one just kind of tells you a little bit about the personality, because, you know, our analytics, they're, of course, very thorough. Our drivers are, let's get it done, come on, yeah, we talked about this, let's move forward. Our amiables are like, wait a minute, let me process this, let me think about it. We need to be sensitive to other people. And then our expressives are like, I have a great idea of how we could do this. So, you know, they all are very different. But the nice thing is they can work together. If you go to the sheet on the second page, it shows you how to work with each other. So if you're an analytic and you need to work with an expressor, if you're an expressive and you need to work with an analytic, that box will show you how to work with that person. Because how you will approach them would be very different than how you would approach an expressive. So if you're expressive and you're working with an analytic, you want to translate your vision into a specific task or goal. You know, you want to develop the details and a plan of action because that's what the analytic is going to respond to. But if you're an analytic and you're approaching a driver, you see right there it says that for the analytic that's approaching the driver, the expressive, you need to jazz up your presentation. You need to make it sound good. You know, you need to make it sound fun and exciting. It can't be boring for them to be responsive to it. So again, I give you this just because it can help you guys as you're working with one another. And I tell you, you guys have a very good mix here. You guys have a couple of amiables. You have a few analytics. You have a couple of drivers and a couple of expressives. So you guys have a good mix. Can you imagine what your team would be like if you had all analytics? Yeah, if you had all analytics, you guys would never get anything done, or a lot of people wouldn't be happy with you because you guys are just going to be like looking at data. You know, everything you do is just going to be data, data, data. Nope, if we don't have numbers, we're not doing it.
I will use this when I use my one-on-one.
I gave a blank copy so that you guys can do it. You see how quick it is, and it's really wonderful. But
I have it written down.
yeah, I wrote it down too. You can read my chicken scratch.
We'll have this in our pocket when we're talking to each other.
Yeah,
Oh, great, I have her chart.
yeah. So then
Keep mine up there.
so Trustee Castaneda, when you want to get Trustee Chong on your side, you just find the box and go to the box and see how to approach him. Get them in your
On
pocket.
my side, I got him.
But I think one thing to know is all of us have a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody has a little of everything, yeah.
So
But it's those differences, though, of what we bring to the table that helps you to work as a team. You can't have just one type, just one personality. You need those differences. But you guys can look at it more later, but I'm glad I decided to go ahead and throw it in real quick because I just think that it's helpful and that it's interesting, something to keep in mind, especially when you're having those tough conversations. You know, on the serious side, that may be when you want to look at that because you don't want to say something that might hurt somebody's feelings if they're an expressive. And you're a driver, you know, you don't want to cut them off. And so you might look at this and say, okay, how can I approach them on this sensitive topic? So again, just keep it handy and hopefully it'll help you guys out a little bit.
And I'll let my staff know where the board members lay for presentations. Each and every one.
Yeah, they can cater to each one.
I'd like to request theirs first, please. So
Okay, so getting back to we're going to wrap up our presentation here. So as I was saying, you know, we've been spending a lot of time talking about the items that you all had in blue because that was the one where I saw on your BSC, your board self-evaluation, we call it a BSC. I saw in your BSC where you had a lot of differences, but we covered most of everything that was things that had a red flag, not a red flag, but where I put an asterisk because I said these are things we need to talk about to see why we think we're doing good, but there's still like some hesitation. And I think we've gone through a lot of those. But before we move on, I want to take a minute and ask, were there any others on here when you went through this that you marked or that you might have circled because you thought, this one's odd to me. This seems like, I wonder why we are this color, or I wonder why, two people put less often, or one person put less often, or one person put rarely. Like, look at number 33. Number 33. Oh, I can give you mine. Oh.
Okay, it's not in here. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that you brought yours with you. I'm sorry. I apologize. Okay, so I'll tell you what it is.
I didn't print it out.
So number 33, it says the board plans for development and training of the board. One person said almost always, two said often, one said less often, and one said rarely. But we see now, how people looked at that statement. So you're doing your board self-evaluation tonight. So that's professional development. You guys, are any of you going to AEC, to the conference?
Yeah, we are.
3 are going and 2 are doing it virtually. So all
So,
5.
yeah, so then that's part of that. So then the next time you guys do this should probably be green, because you guys have invested in the training of the board. And hopefully you'll continue with your board self-evaluation. The other one that I wanted to call to your attention was number 35, which says the board reviews its governance agreements regularly. One says almost always, two says often, one said less often, and one said rarely. And that one I'm going to address next as a whole. But those were the kinds that I wanted to talk to you about to make sure that you guys understood where everybody stands on that one. The number 4, the board works well together. 3 of you said almost always, one said often, and one said less often. Anybody have a comment on that one?
What number?
Number 4, the board works well together. 3 said almost always, one said often, and one said less often. So that means that there was somebody at the table who felt like, no, we need to do better. We can work together better than we have. And hopefully after tonight and being able to have some conversation time and time to talk and look at some of the things that you've been doing, and we're going to talk about norms and protocols next, that then that'll change. And that one that was less often will move up to a often or an almost always. And that's the whole point of this evaluation, is to see where you're at and where you differ. The board gives direction to the superintendent only at board meetings. 2 of you said almost always, one said often, 2 said less often. But we've had that conversation tonight about when to provide direction to the superintendent, how to provide direction to the superintendent, and the one voice providing direction to the superintendent, except for in emergencies, when, yes, you provide direction, do not hesitate, you provide direction. So we've had that conversation. So now everybody should understand what that is, and they should adhere to that. And so that one should change colors as well. So when you have more time after this workshop, you've looked at the results before the workshop, look at it again post-workshop, and look at it from the perspective of the conversations that we've had tonight, and see how it can be different. But the last thing that I want to talk to you about is number 35, which is the board reviews its governance agreements regularly. One of the things that when I was talking with your superintendent, I asked, is there a governance handbook? And there's no governance handbook. So
We have guidelines. We don't
Yeah.
have a handbook.
It used to always be in the desk.
There were guidelines. Aaron's pulled those out.
yeah,
We have sample copies.
The only thing I could find was the big 3-ring binder that I think Mr. Alarcon made when the piece first started, but it was more onboarding, so it gave like at my desk. It kind of give you like this is the district and this is
Yeah.
how we check our email and this
No.
is how we.
Yeah.
There was a small section on governance, very small. There were some printouts from CSE in it, but most of the book that's the only thing I could find was really kind of onboarding information, like welcome to Buena Park.
Angelina, I will say there were guidelines there, because at one point, our previous board used to read, when one president became the president, they read that before they even started. One person would share and would read through, it was more of the norms for holding board sessions. That was when one of the board members became the president. He really liked to go back and start the meeting with reading those, 8 to 12 sections of, or sentences related to the norms. That was as close as we had. Wasn't a handbook though. Erin has done some work with the executive leadership program. The executive assistants
Right.
has been involved. She has her cohort of 5 colleagues that they've been sharing handbooks. We talked a little bit about next steps.
Right. And we'll cover that.
Perfect.
Yeah. So one thing, and when we had the conversation about the governance handbook, and I share with Dr. Miramontes that it was important that the board have a governance handbook, because that handbook is actually what does govern how you perform as a board member. And one of the big things in it is norms and protocols. Typically, when I work with any board, if they're a fractured board or if they're a board that can't find their footing, it's because they don't have norms and protocols. Your board is a unique board because those boards also don't have evaluations that look like yours. They're not. They have a lot of red and yellow. So you guys understand your roles as a board member. But what I think we need to do is put together a governance handbook that outlines specific norms and protocols for you guys. Because the norms and protocols in the handbook, it talks about, how does our board want to be perceived when we're out in the community? How should we respond to people? How do we carry ourselves? How do we act towards each other? And then the governance system. What is our moral imperative? You could put that in writing. What is it, the thing that we're passionate about that we want to do as board members? So that goes in there. The norms are important because, that's the social behavior of how you're expected to carry yourself as a board member. When you have a board member who starts to go rogue, it impacts the whole board. So there needs to be some guidelines that, you won't post things that, in disagreement, like the unified, not uniform, on social media, things like that. Those are things that we could put in there. But they also are important because they establish the trust between the board. They offer consistency among the group with how we act, not just to one another, but out in the community as well. They reinforce that commitment to that unity of purpose and to that unified, not uniform. And they can minimize conflict and misunderstanding, which is huge. So that's why the norms are important. The protocols, now that's the live-in agreement, because protocols are going to change. Just like COVID changed, how we ran our districts, the protocols can change based upon what's going on in your district at that time. And so their governance handbook, when we put one together, should be reviewed once a year, just to make sure that the norms and the protocols still apply. If you get a new person on your board, if you get a new superintendent, and then I'm not trying to get rid of anybody, but if one person on this governance team changes, your whole team changes. Because that new person has come in with their own set of ideas, their own personality, their own working style. And so it's going to change the dynamics of your board. So that's where all of this comes into play. Your norms and your protocols come into play. And they help you to build an effective governance team, because there's something that people can always go back and look at and say, when we get a complaint from a parent, this is how we as a board handle it. when we come to meeting, we've gone through our packet already. We're prepared. We've asked questions in advance of the meeting. Whatever the protocols are that you all, as a team, want to adhere to is what we need to put in writing. Just as a guideline, I always tell my staff at work, I keep a book where I write important things down, and they know where the book is, because I say if I go out and get hit by a bus today, I want whoever comes in here to be able to pick up this book and know where to start off at. And so that's what the governance handbook is as well. When somebody comes into your team, you give them that handbook along with the onboarding, in conjunction with the onboarding process to help them to get through. So your governance handbook will also include governance standards, roles and responsibilities. You'll have your mission and your vision in there, any goals that you want, your norms and protocols, the organization of the board, how you guys switch board members for reorg of the board every December. How do you do that process? Anything that's relevant to you guys. Anything that you guys think that this is always a point of confusion for our board, let's put it in as a protocol. Or this is always something that somebody does, we need to put this as a norm that we're not going to do this. So you're going to do that. The other thing that I always put at the end is not every board bylaw, but just the cover sheet of the board bylaws of what the 9,000. How many of you guys are familiar with the board bylaws? To be honest. Yeah. She's like, are you guys with Gamut? Do you use Gamut? Can you send them information on how to log in to check out the board bylaws? So I'm going to give you homework. Your homework is to look at the board bylaws, the 9,000. You don't have to look at everything. Look at the 9,000.
There's only 9,000 of them.
Because the 9,000s, the 9,200s, 9,300s, 9,400s, just that 9,000, you'll see the cover sheet. And I wish I had brought a sample of it. I didn't bring a sample. Those are the ones that talk about the board. It covers everything from roles and responsibilities of officers to, there you go. Thank you. All of those things. It covers all the topics related to the board's conflict of interest. When I was said to have had a conflict of interest, I went to the board bylaws to read and see what it said. Resignation, when I decided to resign, I went to the board bylaws to see what it said, how to do it. So those are the kind of things that are in your board bylaws. And the one thing about board bylaws is you have to remember, the board bylaws are legal mandates. Those are things that you have to adhere to. Those are things like related to the Brown Act. Those are things related to, personnel. Those things are covered in your board bylaws. And so it's important you don't even try to memorize it. Just look and just read some of the subtitles of what's in the 9,000. And that way when something comes up, oh, you know what? I saw that on the 9,000. Let me go read the actual article now. And then you pull it up, click on it, and you can read it. And the nice thing with you guys is you guys belong to what's called Gamut, which is a service through CSBA, so that we keep the most recent bylaws updated. Yes, because they do change a lot. So please, please, please familiarize yourself with the board bylaws because it's very, very important. So then going to the next step for you as a governance team, the biggest thing, like I said, is to remember that you need to do a board self-evaluation every year. The only exception, I would say again, is the year if your board changes. Give that person time to acclimate themselves before you do a board self-evaluation. It's a waste of time and money if you don't. Give them time before you do it. The second biggest thing is governance handbook. You need to have a governance handbook because then everybody's on the same page and nobody can use the I didn't know, I wasn't supposed to do that excuse, because is something that you all will agree to as a team. And it's a governance team, so the superintendent should have input on it too. You agree to it as a governance team.
Is that
Of
done
your-
like an open session?
I would do it in a workshop format like this. Yeah, it's definitely a workshop format, because it'll take you a few minutes. We have samples, and then Erin, you said that you guys have been sharing samples in your group.
Yeah, we were sharing samples just during our certification.
Yeah, so there's plenty of samples. Pretty standard. It's something you guys could do on your own. If you feel like you'd like to have a facilitator, you can let the SBA know, and, you know, one of us can help you, and we'll write it all up and type it all up and put it in format and everything for you. It's something that is definitely beneficial to a team. Just like with any organization that you're a part of, you want to know what your role is, what you should and should not be doing. Your governance handbook will tell you that. So you need to have a governance handbook. Number three, like I said, please take some time within the next couple of days while everything is still fresh in your head to go through your results again and look at some of the ones that maybe you scored lower and say, okay, do I have a better understanding of this now, or do I feel the same way? Or do I feel like now, yeah, we are going to treat everyone with respect, and that we are going to work towards the same vision, or that we are going to, you know, whatever the item was on here that you might have scored lower, or maybe you just had a different perception of how everybody else viewed it, or you viewed the topic differently when you read it, wasn't what you thought it was when we discussed about it. Is there any on here that anybody, like I said, I'll ask again, had questions about that you really wanted to make sure that we had a chance to talk about it in this type of format before we get to the end here? You can make a motion if you want. Are you going to pass it on? Yeah, just let me take a minute, just look real quick and see if there's anything else you have questions about or you'd like to discuss, have some open conversation with about.
Like number 4, it says the board works well together, which I do believe is together.
That there was an outline.
Yeah, but, you know, I like the fact that we're all different, because that's what,
Mhm.
you know. But I think just recently, I personally have felt like the board has, I haven't, but the years that I have on the board, this is the first time. I mean, we work well together, but it's.
But that's a concern. So are you willing to elaborate on it? You don't have to like get into the minutia of it, but like maybe what made you feel that way as opposed to before?
For me personally, it's felt divided ever since after, the superintendent's evaluation.
Was it, we have to be real careful about that when talking. One thing, did anything I say today about the evaluation process help with that?
Yeah.
Help clear up
Yeah,
anything?
it cleared up some stuff.
Do we have an understanding as a governance team on how the evaluation process for the superintendent should work after our discussion today? Yes, said nods, no, yes, maybe so. I only saw 3 hits, not 2 spin to move.
I don't know if it,
Is it the format that you don't like?
yeah, I think it's the format.
Do you guys use the CSBA format?
Yeah.
You know that you can use a different format, but you can't change the format midstream.
Mhm.
So we're in November. So if you want to change the format, that's a conversation that you need to have with the superintendent, the governance team has with the superintendent. And then you have that when you set the new goals. And what you can do is you can look at some different types of formats. You can look online, you'll see several different types. And if there's something that you would like to bring to the team to propose, then before that meeting, get it to the superintendent, ask him to share it in a Friday packet with everybody else so that, and let the board president know. And then everybody else can look at the different formats. Now, was it the paper format or was it the discussion format? Or both? Okay, because the discussion part is very different. And you guys, did you do yours on your own or did you have a facilitator?
We had a facilitator that's where we're, as far as the facilitator that came in to facilitate with the person we had here that day. Like, he conducted that event.
Okay,
And that's just in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, well, it's his first. It was, yeah, the format, it was different, it was new. And me too was mostly during and then afterwards, how it just really rolls on.
Okay.
And so the whole, and the way that we talked,
wasn't,
it wasn't, yeah, it
What
was
it should have
totally
been.
wrong, yeah. That's where I felt like,
gotcha.
we didn't really treat.
So,
Angelina, let me clarify. We did not use the paper evaluation as CSP. We used what we've used in the past that we created together.
oh,
So the
okay,
format wasn't from CSBA, nor was the facilitator from CSBA.
which is fine,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. It's
So-
just, as long as you guys agree on it,
Yeah.
use whatever works for you. So-
I think elaborating on Irene, on Ms. Castaneda's comment, we're a new board, like, this is our year 3, and I think 3 of us coming on at the same time, and then 2 having, prior good experience. You have the honeymoon stage,
Yeah,
you get the, oh, everyone trying to like be friends, and it's okay not to be friends, but key words is respectful and professional.
right,
I think we were able to keep that up because of our diversity and our strengths. If you look at strengths-based outcomes is how I look at it, we all have our strengths. So we just went through a pandemic, or going through a pandemic still, and I think that really rocked a lot of our perspectives because we, again, had the ability to be together, talk, and then be face-to-face. And I think very much that changes how we interact. And coming back out of that, and then having a situation where now we're trying to tackle different things, and we had a lot on our list. So I think our honeymoon stage is over. Not to say we don't like each other, not to say that, I think that's where maybe, you feel a little,
Yeah,
Just
it's not
getting
that
it.
we don't like each
Yeah.
other, we all, like I said, we.
and there was some lingering
Yeah,
feelings.
for, longer than of friendship.
So let me tell you my philosophy about lingering, and I use the word a lot in workshops. Lingering should never happen. One thing that we have to do, because, it's almost like a marriage, when the governance team comes together, because how you guys have to work together, how you have to make decisions, how you have to vote to pay bills and, keep things going, take care of the kids. It's almost like a marriage. You can't let things linger. If somebody hurts your feelings, and I don't say that in a minor way, serious, if someone says something that's hurtful to you, that makes you feel like you're upset, you're sad by it, you're angry at it, please, 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 don't let it linger. Address it. And do so at an appropriate time. Don't, address it in the hallway in the building where people are walking by. But if somebody has hurt you or said something, or their actions in any way made you feel a certain type of way, make sure you address that with them. Whether it's a phone call, say, hey, I need to talk to you, whether it's setting up a time to have coffee together, coming here to meet and coming in this room when nobody else is here and having a conversation, but don't let it linger. Get it out, because so often, and we know this in our personal relationships, a lot of times it could just be, oh, I shouldn't have said it that way. It could be, oh, I forgot how I say things sometimes can be a bit harsh. That's not what I meant, you know, and it can be resolved really quickly and really easily. But if we don't say anything and we just let it sit there, it's going to fester, it's going to fester, it's going to fester. And then it is going to change how we interact with that individual and how we treat them, how we think about them. So we have to address those things. And it's not always the most comfortable thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. And the sooner you do it, the better, because then you can move on. So have those discussions and get it out in the open so that you guys can be that team that you're happy to see and, you know, feel like you guys are more than just like going through the motions of working well together, but that you guys are a good team, that, you know, you can have tough conversations with one another and know that it's not personal. So have those conversations and work things out right away. Don't let anything linger between you. It'll destroy your board eventually. It may be a slow thing that eats at your board, but eventually it will cause a lot of friction, a lot of problems. So take action. One thing I'll say about the evaluation, I'm not familiar with the tool that you guys use, the CSBA tool, and it's online. You can download it and look at it. That tool, everybody gets it. You know what the goals are. You go through and you write what you think about how the superintendent did. You'll score it, and then you'll write comments. So everybody does their own, and then the board president will make copies, give everybody a copy of everybody's comments, or you could do it in advance of the meeting where you come together, or you could just do it at that meeting. And then we just went through and we're like, okay, number one, go get NAVIT at every school. How did the superintendent do? I gave him a 4 because he did great. I gave him a 4, I gave him a 4, I gave him a 2. Okay, let's talk about it. Why did we have a 2 and everybody else gave a 4? And we would have a discussion about that 2. Why is there a 2? And then we would come to a consensus on what number we wanted to score it at. And then we'd write the comments, you know, where we commended the superintendent on things. If there was anything we wanted them to work on, we would write comments about, you know, we expect the superintendent to continue to, you know, move out on this and work on that, whatever. We would put both things there. But everything was related to the goal. Remember, no personal individual, it was we. We had to agree on what went in there as a team. Everybody's opinion needs to be heard and respected and agreed upon, the final language agreed upon as a team. So, and that's what we would do for everyone. And then we just summarize it and then present it to the superintendent later. Schedule a time to present it to the superintendent in closed session. And that discussion, of course, with the board does that, is also private. Usually we did a special meeting, closed session special meeting to go through that. But just remember that it has to be related to what you're evaluating them on. Everybody's voice gets heard. Everybody's opinion gets heard. Just make sure that whatever goes in, though, is not anything personal. It's something that the group agreed upon. If it's personal, remember, or something that you felt a certain way about, then when you give the evaluation to the superintendent and you're having the verbal discussion, like I said earlier, that's where you can address that with him verbally, face to face, while the group is there. So just because it didn't get written down doesn't mean you can't say it. You can still say it. So hopefully your next process will go better. I do suggest, look, not for this time because you guys are already in the middle of the process. Don't change the tool now. It's not fair to the superintendent. But next year, when you do the goals, if you want to look at some different tools, look at some different tools. You guys all have my email address. If you get to that point and you say, okay, I'll have the CSBA one and I have the one we use, I want to see some more, email me and I'll see if I can find some other ones for you to look at.
Very similar.
Yeah, they're all pretty similar. Yeah, they're all pretty similar.
I think we just had growing pains.
We all do.
Yeah, and I think we just need to be able to communicate
Yes.
with each other in a way we haven't done before, because Vermont is great, and he likes to handle us with, maybe he has to go out sometimes. It's our turn to step up also. Ways to understand how we, self-efficacy,
Yeah.
I think is a big step goal for us as a board. Reliant on what we don't know, so we have to go learn, or we have to go share and take initiative. That's a goal within ourselves. I know we haven't done goal setting yet, I'm sure that's not right now
Right.
what we're doing here, but that's kind of where probably feelings are coming in. Sometimes feelings are good, sometimes feelings doesn't mean it's always the indicator of it. Yeah.
Did you guys have this book? You have the governance club book? I would suggest you get them all a copy of this.
Oh, excellent. They talked about that.
This,
They went on our
I
site.
have more highlights and notes and tabs and things all throughout the pages folded in this book. I have notes written in this book. This is what taught me how to be a board member, this book. So maybe this is something that you all get and spend some time like going through it, and then you guys can have a study session or something where you kind of just talk about some of the stuff that's in here. But this is a great book as far as guiding you through some of the basic things and some of the tough things as well. It's a fabulous book.
Make sure to order that for the board.
Yeah. Were there any other things? Did that help at all? Okay. Because I want you guys to be back to being a solid board. Anything else that you guys came across that you thought maybe some conversation on anything else? We still have a few minutes.
Comment on number 13,
What-
we manage internal conflicts in a productive manner. I think a lot of it stems from not having protocols and norms in our own handbook. It's a guidebook. It helps a lot with the culture and the responsibilities, because we've been driving blind. We just drive in our own
Yeah.
strengths. Not in a bad way, it's not anyone's fault.
Right,
I
but you
think
just
we're
assume
learning.
that everybody's gonna do things a certain way and everybody's gonna adhere to a certain thing, but there's nothing written.
Right. So how to handle even conflict is something that we're having discussed as a group.
I just
We-
told you how to do that.
Yep. So I appreciate that. That's what I mean, I appreciate that. So I think
Yeah.
those are things that I like to, because again, as I take this thing, I was like putting one hat on saying, oh, I remember like when it's myself on this particular case, and then I was like changing it when I put on a bigger hat, said, okay, step back and look at it.
Yeah,
That changes. I could take this twice and probably have totally different results depending
yeah,
on what lens I'm looking at it in, like filter.
yeah.
I think that's what, I'm curious to see what everyone's filter was at the moment you took it.
And that's why I said it's important that you go back and look at it now, because we've talked about some of these things. So now that we've had a discussion and there's been some clarity on some things, it'll look different to you. So, yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Well, like I said, go
I
ahead.
think just, a follow-up, as we started looking at a handbook, as President Chung mentioned, having those guidelines and protocols in place, norms set in place. That's something we would contract with CSBA to come out and work with our.
You could
as
do
well.
that. So what I do when I do a governance handbook is I'll again, like call each board member and kind of talk to them and say, okay, under norms, what's important for you? Under protocols, what's important for you? And then I try to put together the something in advance. A lot of it is boilerplate,
Right.
you know that, is standard stuff. But the other stuff, based upon conversations with the five of you, I would put together, you know, together. So there might be like 30 norms. We don't want 30 norms. But we come together and we can merge some of them. We can say, well, yeah, no, we all do that. We don't need that there. That's a given. You know, yeah, no, that one we need. You know, same thing with the protocols. We go through and say, okay, which ones do we need to have and which ones maybe don't apply because it's a board bylaw, you know, so we have to adhere to the board bylaw, so we don't need to put it as a protocol. So we go through and do that. So I try to do all the front-loaded work in advance so that then when we come together again in a session like this, it's just a matter of tweaking it, going through, okay, what do we, and then you guys would have a copy in advance so that you could each go through and write your notes and thoughts, and we go through page by page. What do we want? What am I taking out? What are we putting in? Where do we miss? Did we miss something? Everybody on board. Because what happens then, after that meeting, then all the changes, I take them back again. I put everything, okay, this is exactly what you guys wanted. I send it back to you for a final review. Yes, this is it. There's a signature page in the back. Everybody signs it, committing to it, and you approve it at one of your board meetings. It's agendized, approval of the governance handbook, and you assign it, and it's agendized, and it's approved, and that's it. And that's what you all agree to. So that's how it works. So if that's something that you do want to do at some point, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to CSBA, and then we can schedule dates to do that.
I'll have a conversation with the board minute.
Yeah. Sure.
So once they, if they went that route and they approved it at a board meeting, then once a year, would you take it back for discussion and talk about it, make changes to it, and then approve it again that next
Yeah,
year?
and then you guys can do that, you know, you don't need to just, a lot of it won't change.
Right.
But like, let's say there's something going on now in schools that you feel like needs to go, you need to have a protocol for the board members on how to handle it. You just add it in there and then you just do a new signature page and, yeah. And that's it. And like I said, we have a lot of good staff, so, you know, like, that can help you with that, so.
Thank you.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know your team. I know all of you. You guys have been a very easy district to work with. I've learned a lot about the five of you. And again, I commend you for your passion. Your moral imperative is strong. The passion that you guys have for your community, for your students in your schools, please always keep that at the forefront. And as long as you do that, everything else, you guys will get through it. That's the most important thing. So thank you guys for having me. I hope to work with you again in the future. I enjoyed you all. And if you have like a follow-up question, you know, something that you just thought of in the middle of the night like me, just shoot me an email and I'll respond to you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
For
you.
taking time.
Thank you.
I'll go back to the. Very honest.
just go straight to adjourn? That was a great study session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second?
Motion by Ms. Brito, second by Ms. Ahmad. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the planning board meeting adjourned at